Mafia works.
Welcome back to the channel, lads and ladies, and welcome to, well, a little bit of a spicy remix here. This is Viski, a familiar character in the channel. He sent in an incredible replay in the P40 Leoncello, so enjoy, sit back, and watch this ridiculousness. So, we start off with him in the midst of his advance toward the enemy, being jumping upon, you might say, an M4, and getting counterattacked by a baby tank Locust. Unfortunately, baby tanks were harmed in the making of this video, as Viski takes down both the Locust and the M4. Unfortunately for the pilot of that vehicle, the M22 just didn't have quite enough punch with its main gun to seal the deal, and that is sort of the downside to the Locust, that post-penetration effect. Now, moving on, he quickly takes out some poor Brit box boy. That riveted turret armor was definitely not enough to stop Viski's APHE, and now we can play the little sub-game within the episode. Which ammo is Viski going to use next? So, your best guess in the comments below. Yeah, timestamps, please. Just try and guess if he's going to use high explosive anti-tank or armor-piercing high explosive. Both of these rounds function well in their intended role within the game. Oh, it's heat time as he faces off against an M4 Sherman. Looks like the A3 model, and definitely switch to heat here to punch right through the frontal plate. Speaking of, it looks like that was the 105 howitzer equipped one, which is a 2.3 battle rating, a real monster when it comes to frontal protection at that battle rating. So we were talking about the two main ammo types for the P40 Leoncello. This is a discussion that comes up anytime you're covering the P40. It has a main gun that is, for most intents and purposes, very similar to the M4 Sherman's 75. Similar pen on the AP round, although I think a bit less, with a bit more high explosive packed into the shell. Muzzle velocity, not fantastic, and so the APHE round is very good at dealing with most enemies that don't have the highest armor ratings that you'll face, as that appears to be a friendly Sherman getting hit again and again by this British boy. It's the British... what would you call this thing? It's almost like an oddly shaped pizza box on top of a doorstop. The British tank design really shows a lot of interesting features. Anyway, we were talking about rounds for the P40 Leoncello as we watch Viski just clean up this entire front of the battlefield, having swept one area down into the cap zone, cleared that, and now moving to try and find more victims. It's an M3, and the Lee can be a really tricky target as he gets a hit on the 75. The Lee still able to counterattack with his 37. Speaking of, here comes, what is this, M4A2, M2A4? M2A4. That is the premium version, judging from the decal on the front. That's a rank 1 premium starter for the Americans. Great little vehicle. Unfortunately, with its little 37mm cannon, it's sort of up against more than it can chew, having a battle rating of 1.3, appropriately having a difficult time with this, well, Italian heavy tank, the P40 Leoncello. Medium tank in the game, but heavy as far as the Italian industry was concerned. And, well, I seem to have distracted myself, haven't I? The P40 sits at a 3.3 battle rating. If you haven't heard me say it before, it really functions a lot like an Italian T-34, that being the Soviet medium tank, not the American heavy. But with your APHE round that has very, very good post-pen effect in most circumstances, except when it just doesn't explode for some reason, and having access to a heat round with over 100 millimeters of penetration and decent post-pen effect for a heat round, the P40 Leoncello definitely sits in a good place when it comes to a 3.3 battle rating meta. In an up tier, you can face some sticky opponents, but Viski is finding a lot of enemies that he's able to bite off a piece of as he gets into a tricky encounter with an M3 and his friend. Once again, the M22 makes his appearance. There is a reason this light tank is a favorite among many players of the game, and the M3 is having trouble punching through Viski's angled frontal armor or his turret. Perhaps he should have aimed for lower in the hull, but with the whole crew already damaged in Viski's vehicle, that could be a tricky situation. Speaking of, let's play a shell game. The name of this game is Where's the M22? You have 2 trees to hide behind, 2 targets to choose from. Where's the M23, lads and ladies? Which tree would it be behind? Place your bets in the comments below. Remember, this is Mafia Wars, so there will be a reward of 75 XP to... Aw, Viski, you chose poor tree. See what I did there? The M22 was behind the other bush. So now Viski, not necessarily in a tight spot. Again, we've already established that the P40 has reasonably good defense against the American 37 at these ranges, and he manages to take down an aggressive Locust who perhaps pushed a bit more than he should have. I was thinking when I first watched this replay that if I was in Viski's shoes, well, I mean, first off, I'd probably already be dead, but I would have pushed that M22. But Viski, being patient, relying on his frontal armor and the cover that both concealed the M22 and prevented him from getting a good shot on target, would force the Locust to step out. Here's an M8 and great Scott. This poor, I think he's a 2.3 battle rating medium light tank. Tank destroyer. Is there a third option? Gets easily taken down by Viski, first with a shot into its track, that perhaps that was heat and thus got eaten by the track. That's my guess. I wasn't watching the ammo count there, and again, this is replay, so it's a little bit more difficult to tell which ammo type is loaded. And then he finishes him off with an armor-piercing, high-explosive round. I'm a big fan of the APHE on the Leoncello. For the most part, you don't have to load anything else. Shermans and KV-1s can pose a problem. I'm used to shooting through the mid-turret cheek of the T-34 early models, so that's not so much of an issue. But if you aim carefully and you know where to hit your opponent, the armor-piercing, high-explosive round is very, very effective. And with something else that I haven't mentioned yet, the P40 has a good reload rate, somewhere between the standard Sherman and the T-34. I think perhaps a bit faster than T-34, and certainly has a little bit of an edge on the early KV-1s. Not that you should be facing those all that often, but at a 3.3 battle rating, you can get up tiered into a 4-3 where you face KV-1B, and that can be, KV-1B is at a 4.0 in RB. That is, that is a powerful, powerful vehicle. Moving right along, Viski is just consistently sweeping the map for enemies, looking for targets to take down. He gets shot in the rear, and yet no real effect. Another shot goes into the rear of the vehicle. That must be the American 37 for how little post-penetration effect it had there on his transmission, giving Viski the opportunity to avoid the enemy, set back behind this hard cover, and try and locate his attacker. He's expecting the enemy to push through his smoke screen there, so he waited for a bit, and now he's flanking around to try and put himself into an attack position on the enemy. Can he get around? Will he get the kill? You know, we need voiceover Pete here to narrate this section. Viski needs your help. He needs help in locating this enemy tank so he can get the big W. And what he's gonna need is the numbers on your mother's credit card, the name on the card, the expiration date, and the 3 numbers on the back. So go ahead and send that into the Don't do that. Don't do it. It's a scam. It's even more of a scam than Mafia City itself. So, Viski taking down that enemy with ease, having gotten the dankest of flankest upon his opponent, can now push on and look at that number of kills, and it is going to go a bit higher before the end of the match. I hope you guys are enjoying this time in the P40 Leoncello. It is a really fun tank. One of the things that I actually appreciate about the Italian tech tree is that almost all of their premiums are a copy of something that's available in the regular tech tree. In the case of the P40, you have a regular tech tree equivalent that is by no means really any different than the premium version, so you're just paying for that golden name tag with the financial bonuses that implies, and not paying for an advantage against your opponents. The that 105mm carrying little tiny tank destroyer that the Italians have looks like a lot of fun. I think it's called the 105-25, something like that. Again, it's going to take me a while to get down the Italian vehicle names, and I feel more and more like somebody's grandma when I'm trying to name off these tanks. It's what's a McCullough 2573B, right? Is that the one you wanted? I got it gift wrapped for you. Oh, grandma, I love you so much. I'll return it for in-store credit tomorrow. But the Italian premiums, they have a premium M26, which, if you get a feel for how to play the American medium tanks effectively, it can be a very, very effective medium tank. A lot of fun premium. I've had a blast playing that one. The P40 is just a straight up fun tank. It almost seems superior to the T-34 in many ways, the tank that it is very, very familiar to. I'd say it has better turret armor and roughly equivalent hull armor with side protection of 40mm, mostly unsloped, but that does give you an opportunity to angle safely a bit, although experienced players will aim for that frontal wheel on your chassis and often punch through straight into the crew compartment, in the case of APHE, often one-shotting you. As we go back to Viski, he's still looking around, searching the battlefield for any more enemies he could find, and what he may get is something of a surprise. So we'll keep our breath held for what comes next for Viski. Do you hear that? The sound of aircraft buzzing overhead. That was a very effective bombing by that, what is that, an SBD-3, perhaps? The Dauntless, I believe it's called, that Douglas dive bomber. That is a very effective aircraft in the American tree, in the hands of someone that knows how to use ground strike well, and apparently one of the people that Viski took down is a decent CAS pilot, and I say that because he dropped those bombs right on target. And also, he had no bomb timer, and that is beyond my skills. I really like to fly low, buzz the ground, drop my payload, and have it tink into the side of an enemy tank, exploding 1 second later so that I have time to escape to safety. But that pilot really knows his stuff, and he was able to get those bombs on target from a safe enough distance to get away from the blast without blowing himself up in the process. You know, when someone like that kills me, I don't even feel bad. I cannot speak for Viski though, as I'm not sure how he feels at this point, having respawned in one of those very effective Italian fighters with a couple of 20 mils in the wings. Those should have around 60 rounds apiece, I think, in this model, so not a ton of ammunition. They do cause a bit of drag being mounted in sort of a semi-wing pod fashion, but it's not something you really notice on these gutsy Italian fighters. In case you weren't familiar, one of the things that's most enjoyable about the Italian tech tree in general is that they have access to some very, very effective fighters. Not the best when it comes to casts, but they do get a Stuka for what it's worth at the lower battle ratings, and a duck. I think it's actually a premium duck, so that's the Romanian one, along with their other Romanian aircraft, the IAR-81C, which is a very, very fun aircraft for both ground attack and taking down enemy fighters coming into the battlefield. If you fly it just right, it feels like a bit of a sluggish Focke-Wulf with a little bit smoother handling, so worth looking into if you were curious about that one. Viski going for the head-on there, gets a quick and easy pilot snipe, apparently, on that enemy aircraft, bringing his kill count up to astronomical numbers, especially for an RB match, as the match comes to a close. So, hats off to Viski, cheers to the enemy team for continually throwing themselves at him, and if you take nothing else away from this video, it's really all about positioning. Viski often put himself in those close encounters in a place of advantage over his opponents, and he was able to make use of what his vehicle had to offer. Anyway guys, thanks for watching. I'll catch you in the next video, and definitely be sure to keep sending in those replays. Bye-bye.